Hi, everybody. I'm JC, Jaycee Dubyuh, for those who are not familiar. I am creative director under operations at LVLUP Expo, and I am also now the co-founder of our official 501c3,
All
LVLUP
right.
Plus. I'm really excited to have launched this project. Our focus at LVLUP Plus is going to be on those who are working in STEM who do not have degrees and how we can answer solutions for them, along with
Mhm.
how we can build equity amongst marginalized communities, of course, with yours truly.
Right.
We see that in the STEM field through the NSF, 67% of people who work in STEM do not have degrees. So I feel like as of late, being in the corporate space and seeing the amens that we're getting from the congregation, when we have a lot of these closed gatherings and now being invited to those, I want to start having a conversation with the community that actually is the majority. The people who are
Mhm.
actually in the field that are doing this. 55% of the field is also women. We also have a very few amount in marginalized communities that have degrees. We're talking about in maybe the early hundreds of thousands for the Native American community. That's 0.3% of their workforce that have degrees in that field out of the
Mhm.
37.4 million that actually work in the field. I am also with Stanford University through PrideNet Research Study. I'm currently an ambassador, but not for long because I will be transitioning to becoming a community partner with the
Mhm.
mental health nonprofit that I founded, my 501c3, the Telligent Agency. Our goal and mission over there is to create a conversation that is relatable through the placebo of relatability. That means that if you're a gamer and I'm doing an event for you and we have an audience of gamers, then I will go find therapists that are in the gaming field to talk to you during that panel discussion. And then you
Okay.
can see how attractive it is to have mental health from somebody that relates to you.
Mhm.
We noticed that conferences across the country, there's only like about 24, and I think only three of them really cater to, on a nationwide level, actual mental health care at a colloquial level. The other 21 are strictly for research. So there's a language
Mhm.
barrier conversation that's happening, and we want to really break that down. I'm also the founder of the Gamer Ally People of Color, which is the largest queer POC gaming brand in the country. I'm going to use my mental health agency to become a fiscal proprietor over that group so that I can start doing events outside. I did do my first Gay Back event at Level Up Expo this year. And yeah, there are many other things that I'm tied to.
Mhm.
Senior event planning, Randy Blake Jr. was retirement festival in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm actually partnered with the Tulsa Sports Commission there to work on that. So there's a lot of things between gaming and mental health, wellness, and a lot of people who want to get into the field in that intersection that's coming along the way.
Right. So how did you even get started on that journey? How did sort of bridge that gap between gaming and mental health? It's not really the, I guess, first thought when you kind of go into gaming or go into the mental health space. So kind of how did you bridge that gap?
It started me getting blocked out of this group on Facebook called Rainbow FGC. I tell this story all the time because I don't want people to think that I'm some kind of hero. I'm problematic too at times. Before I started getting mental health, I see my therapist routinely now, but I used to be problematic. I want to talk about that. And I had a couple of awakenings that I had to go through. But at this particular time, it wasn't related to either one of those. I'm just a huge
Mhm.
X-Men fan. And Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite had just came out. And in our community in FGC, we were starting to see people from the community get jobs with the developers. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
progress. Okay, yeah. And then I saw this erasure going on with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, where they were just like, "Oh, people don't remember who the X-Men are, and they're going in a different direction." And Disney was doing that whole wipeout thing, and in the comics, they were doing Death of X with the IVX War and all that foolishness. And I was just like, "I'm not with this." So I was in the group, kind of, talking my stuff, and they kind of got upset and they blocked me out the group. Out the little syndicate that we were calling ourselves at that time was No X-Men, No Peace. So jokingly, we were kind of walking around and being like, if the X-Men ain't a part of something, we're gonna boycott it. And I mean, for better or worse, what happened to Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, it worked because the game tanked terribly. Needless to say, at the time that I got blocked out of this group, a friend of mine in North Carolina hit me up and was like, "Why don't you just make your own?" And I was just like, "Oh, I never thought about that." And then I did, and I made Gaypoc, and it got 800 members in 3 months. We got to 1,006. I became a North American Power admin in 6 months with Facebook. I am now certified with Meta as a power leader of community management with them. Now that we've grown and we're in our 7th to 8th year, but at that time it was like, wow, we kind of got something. It was kind of dope. And then
Mhm.
my local chapter in Virginia, we were having like a lot of house meetings and stuff. And then the mental health part started a little bit post pandemic. So about 3 or 4 years in, I started to notice that my group was a little heteronormative. And we started having some critical issues that were being brought up. And it got to the point where even some of my admins were kind of being anti-trans, anti-inclusive. And I started to notice this cell of elitism that was popping up in the hierarchy chain between Black gay men. And I was just like, oh, we're kind of doing something a little, how do I balance this as a leader who's trying to make a space for everybody queer? And then the non-binaries and the trans individuals where they were pissed with me. Like they were not happy because they felt like I wasn't taking enough action and I was the owner of this group. And then the hyper-masculine gays were like, well, we don't like X, Y, and Z. And I don't like how you're taking this group, so we're leaving too. So I had this mass exodus. But around that time, there was this murder that happened in my Detroit chapter. A TikTok influencer with 250,000 followers was killed by his boyfriend over a game of Overwatch. Both of them were in my group. Both of them were extremely active. Both of them were extremely present. And I started to realize at that point, we're moving from critical issues we kind of talk about at the water cooler that are now being held in this group because it's sustained so long to actual compound stress that's leading to fight or flight, and people are losing their lives. So when that happened, the articles were everywhere, and I was nervous because I thought my group was going to get brought up and that was the end of us. Luckily, we didn't, but still I felt a responsibility to make change. So I went to Stanford that summer in 2021, and I said, I want to make a mental health group. And they were like, we thought you were going to be an ambassador for like tournaments and stuff and parties. And I was like, no, I think this is really important. And this is what just happened in my group. And I had to get that out of the mud a little bit, but they supported me. And that's how the Telligent Agency was born. It was originally a queer Telligent. And the success of what we did at Norfolk State University with our premiere installment was so successful. I partnered with the Department of Health. Different local agencies came out and provided services. It was so many people that came off little promo that Norfolk State wanted to partner for homecoming the next year, which I wasn't able to do because I moved. But then at that point, we saw, they were like, can you do this for women? Can you do this for this? Can you do this for that? And I was like, oh, this is bigger than what I thought. Let me take the queer off and just make it Telligent. And that's how the Telligent Agency was formed.
Explain to me like the impact of your groups, like thus far, as far as like from your point of view, like what type of impact do you think these groups have had on the community you're reaching out to? Where do you feel like you are as a whole, connected to all the things that you are connected to? Like, where do you feel like you are in that journey?
I don't think I'm very far. I don't think the impact is as profound as what people try to make it out to be. I think we're at a place where that impact is kind of a point of enthusiasm, but it's not as much of a point of execution in abundance. That's kind of why I have my head down right now, because I guess the happy answer would be, oh, we have a profound impact amongst this community and that community. And at the end of the day, we actually don't. The numbers of research for us are a fraction of what they need to be. And then I went to one of the largest conventions in the country to get a nonprofit that didn't, in its infinitive, make sense to anybody. I had to really explain what the power and the importance of creating a nonprofit branch of this, community was, and why it was important for us to step to the front and create change. And then I had to convince agents to come out and discuss that. I partnered with Riot Games. I partnered with the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology. We're working on growing those relationships so they can come out and do a career fair with us with speed networking and get people jobs in the field. But because all of this work is being done, I don't get to celebrate the accolades that a lot of the Blur Cons and the Dream Cons and the Dragon Cons get to celebrate, because what I'm doing in the movement is so different in intersection, particularly where it associates with healthcare, that I'm pioneering a lot of conversation. So while that conversation has enthusiasm, I have to perform. I have to say right now, I don't think I'm at a place where I can say we have impact, but I can say we're at a place where people are willing to have the conversation and I'm ready to perform.
Explain to me a little bit more about Level Up. Just kind of dive into it a little bit more, like as far as the education part and pathway for people that's in STEM. So kind of talk a little bit more about that.
So the angle that I'm going towards this, like I said, equity for marginalized communities, I think the biggest thing that we see where I want to start addressing some problems is, one, blue collar. We're talking about 67% of people that don't have degrees. Two, we have a lot of women in the field. Women are, as you see on the STEM side, not as much celebrated traditionally, particularly in the gaming field. So I want to create equity for that. Our native population is missing a lot of identity and talent scouting. I want to find out where they are and start bringing them to the forefront. And then overall with Level Up Plus, I want to create a conversation that shows impact in a way that we're not traditionally thinking. To give you an example, the state of Nevada is 49th in education, 49th out of 50, but they have an 80% graduation rate and they have a huge blue collar sector out here in Las Vegas. What I want to start doing is equating gaming to a lot of those individuals, because a lot of those individuals in the last generation grew up, learned indie skills, had dreams, and they didn't come true. On the workforce side, B2B, I've been privileged to talk with people like Visa, Lenovo, Dean Neal over at Lenovo, who's an executive director over the Chinese market share. He has actually highlighted me amongst other companies that the number one problem they're having in the workforce field is that people don't know how to do the job. They're getting college degrees, they're coming out to the field, and they're getting fired in 6 months. So what we want to do is connect all of this. If most of the people that are working in the field don't have a degree, if the workforce is having a problem retaining employment for job knowledge with workforce talent pipelines, then why can't we use Level Up Plus to bridge all of that together while we're having a conversation? So Lenovo can come in and create a workforce incubator with us. We can implement that program. The schools, we can then talent scout through tournaments and celebration, see where the talent is, see what their skills are based on the games that they're playing. And then we can start creating that pipeline either through the colleges and offer scholarship opportunities, or we could just create a VOTEC program, maybe have an incubator come from the company into town, and then the kids can directly go and get certifications, much like they do in IT, and go directly into the field. We're seeing experience as being valued a little bit more these days than pedigree. So because we're in that economic experimental term, we want to use our platform for that.
And then talk a little bit more about Telligent, like just kind of give me a little bit more background into that.
Oh, so we're trying to turn Telligent into like a market indicator of why mental health is important. I'll give you a prime example you could probably relate to very easily. Relationship podcasts. How many times have we heard the conversation about men and women should go 50-50 versus men should take care of everything, right? In our community, that's common. See viral posts arguing about that all the time and several different places on several different platforms. What a lot of people don't know is that this past April, the St. Louis Bank just revealed a study that acknowledged single Black and Latino women make 8 cents on the dollar to a white man. 8 cents. We have a much bigger problem that's going on in this country than what we're doing with relationships. But we kind of use escapism for what we want to do for our own mental health sanity because we're so fixated on survival that these types of conversations allow us to have a voice. So these types of conversations become important. So we will pay money to go out to these relationship podcasts when they're live and be like, I went live, blah, blah, blah. And then we continue the conversation, right? We think, on the one end, we're kind of finding healing, but on the other end, there's a completely different game that's being played far above our heads. What I want to do with Telligent is expose that game. I really want to get to a place where we get to a place where we can heal. And I'm always telling people, you owe it to yourself to heal whenever I hear trauma. And we do. We as a people owe it to ourselves to heal. We as a people owe it to ourselves to get to a place where we are knowledgeable enough, not only how to engage and integrate, but to be able to stand in our own identities and have confidence in that. I don't want to say so much pride, but I do want to say confidence, self-worth, value, things that are important to who we are. So Telligent is kind of approaching that angle with a lot of group sessions, a lot of panel discussions, and we got online media coming soon.
You was talking podcasts and stuff. Are you into that space too, as far as like podcasting?
I have 3 different. I used to do a podcast called TL Talks on Twitter. Okay. That's actually how I got into the corporate space and made the jump. Thank God, if anybody looks up those Twitter spaces, I think we got as big as Lupe Fiasco came in and we talked FGC stuff with him. I have been holding the torch unapologetically at the top of my lungs to a lot of these developers that I'm seeing at a lot of the conferences and meetings and summits that I'm going to now, because I knew for a fact they were doing it wrong. I got 3 offers on the table, but I don't know. We'll see what the future holds.
All right. It sounds like you got a bunch of options as far as kind of how you want to go about getting your message out there and connecting all these dots. Obviously, you don't feel like you've had the impact that some might suggest that you might have. What does that look like for you? Like, at what point can you say, oh, we've actually made a dent into this way, or we've actually made a headway into that way? I guess the bar of success for you.
When you come back and tell me that I have done good work, I don't think I see other people like me in this space. There aren't many, but I see their agenda. You kind of remember Ghost of Christmas Past, always kind of in the background with Scrooge and his experience and stuff. That's me right now. That's the role that I like to take on. And people like me for how I talk. They'll put me in front of a camera, at events. They'll put me on speaker lists, and I'll go and I'll, say my piece. And, I keep it within the realms of control, but they're like, hey, I really want you to go there. And I know I can't. But
Mm-hmm.
my presence is really for the bad actors in the scene. We had a whole esports winner. Gaming is now becoming a cuss word in a lot of sponsorship spaces, and
Mm-hmm.
money has tightened because bad actors took advantage of that, particularly during the pandemic, and promised a bunch of lies. So when people see my little short self walking around at CES with a media pass, or they see me with a speaker badge on the EST events, I see them
Mm-hmm.
and I know what they've done, and I want them to know time's up because people like you need the help. And I'm learning the secrets in these spaces to take them back to people like you so that you can stop doing this as hard as you are. So when
Mm-hmm.
you come back to me and you tell me that I have done good work, I've won.
Here in the near is future. You got any projects you working on? Obviously, you already talked about a lot of the things you connected to. You got anything that's front of mind that you are really either excited for, or you got something that's coming around the corner?
Yeah, I'm kind of dreaming big. Working with Angela Lewis at Dolce and Gabbana to see if I can get a pretty Telligent
Hmm.
for either Fashion Week or something in the near future in the fall. I'm hoping Beja Velez will join on to that. I know it's been hard to catch her because she just did that Hennessy campaign with the NBA, but I'm hoping I can tie her down because she's amazing and bring out some other individuals and bring out Dr. Brinkley out in LA, who I think does extremely great work in that field to talk about, wholeness from a beauty and an ugly perspective, so to speak, but I believe everybody's beautiful, but you know how some of us get when we live in here. Dr. Akil Fletcher at Princeton University. He and I are supposed to be linking up to do either Youth Telligent or a Gamer Telligent for his students. We're going to canvas that a little bit. Kashana Gray, Dr. Kashana Gray and I are going to do something at the University of Michigan coming up this year. I mentioned earlier, well, I'm working with Randy Blake Jr., the 5-time international kickboxing champion. I'm actually doing a festival around his retirement fight in Tulsa, Oklahoma next year. And then this week, I meet with Bloomington, Minnesota, and hopefully they will accept my proposal to do the offline activation for gaming for the Esports Travel Summit next year that'll happen in Bloomington. So great things aligned. I'll be in DreamCon this week. Excited to go down there. Some of their team has already reached out and we've already had some conversations. Some I'm going to meet with before I get there. Some I'll meet while I'm there. And I'm working with Loris Humphrey with Pearl, of course, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm really excited to see what the career fair looks like because I just am so excited about that launch. But those are some of the things that I'm really working on. There are some things in the background that I'm doing with the City of LA yacht and a certain singer slash rapper who may have a dollar sign in his name that I'm waiting to kind of drop the ball on after we get some paperwork signed. And then the thing I'm probably looking forward to the most is syndicating online media, getting the blogs and the articles and the information out there that people need to know around mental health and gaming. And then we're starting our research. So we're going to start doing qualitative research and we're going to start doing free tournaments and we're going to start throwing money. And we don't want to ask much. We just want to know where you at. But we want you to come out and have a good time. And we don't want you to spend $2,000 to come and see us. We want to come see you. And we want to put money in your pocket because we know your phone bill and your rent due. So those are the things that I'm really excited to get to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope. I give you the last word. Plug yourself, where people can find you if you want them to find you, everything you connected to, drop the websites and all that good jazz.
Socials, Jaycee Dubyuh on Facebook, Jaycee Dubyuh on LinkedIn, Jaycee Dubyuh on Instagram, DubyuhJaycee on Twitter. I promise I'm going to fix that. I might have fixed it already and it might be Jaycee Dubyuh, go check, but I think it's still WJC over there. I am not really on TikTok like that. We're getting there, but I want my agency to kind of be on TikTok more or less than me because I'll get up there and I'll rant like I did in this video. Nobody's going to hear me talk all day for real. But levelupexpo.com. April 25th through the 27th. We already booked for 2025. Excited for that. I want to take the time to plug somebody who I think is about to become a major player in the community. Deron Flood is the creator of Atlanta Comic Con in my hometown area of Hampton Roads, Virginia. I am throwing every single last resource that I can find behind this man. Some of them are coming out this year. A lot of them are coming out next year. I believe that what he's doing with Atlanta Comic Con is a true talent. I am excited for what they're doing in gaming. I'm going to push everything that I possibly can to make that a major within the next 3 years so that we can come out, have a good time the way we know how to have a good time without having to apologize to anybody. So AtlantaComicCon.com. Please check it out. Check Atlanta Comic Con out on Instagram. Check them out on Facebook. This convention is definitely going to change some things. I'm so excited.
And actually, my last question for you, gaming in the education space. where do you see it heading next? Obviously, more colleges are starting to kind of include people as a whole as far as scholarships and different ways that you can think of. Where do you think like the education space is like headed?
If you're following the money, it's headed towards college. If you're following the curriculum, it's not really headed anywhere. You got 6 and 10 still dropping out in inner city neighborhoods for us, right? But the top players at all the competitive gaming tournaments that have access to them are Black. Happened at Evo last year. Street Fighter 6. Everybody that won was Black. Top 3. Black. Even in other countries, Black. So what are we doing to break down that conversation, right? And I do want to take this moment to show why I feel like it's not going anywhere. Characters have boxes on the screen. There's a grid in the background. They're trying to hit somebody else who has boxes on the screen. We dress it up and make them look like characters, right? But there's still boxes on the screen. There's time that happens between the instances in which they interact with each other. You space out, come closer. There are problems in the situation of the match that you have to solve. Problem solving. But on SOLs, we see it on paper. Kids don't get it. But in a game with a controller in their hands, they're solving problems at 60 frames a second. So now we're talking about, if this is how the kids are understanding learning, but we're not calling it that, what would happen if we did? This is where I hope esports and gaming is going. That we start talking about retention. We start talking about experimental learning. We start talking about identifying problem solving in gaming so that we can start teaching people who are not typically understanding math, because that's curriculum STEM. What they're doing is STEM, they don't know it. Where I think it's going right now, I haven't seen a curriculum yet that's doing that. That's breaking down if Ken jumps at you at Street Fighter 6 from 5 frames of space with a 9-frame startup fierce punch. What do you do in order to counter that? Do you crouch jab? Do you do an anti-air? Do you backdash? Or do you forward shimmy? Like, these are things that are not being taught. But could you imagine how much we'd be able to teach in numbers and in math if we did? So right now, I think it's just going in a big circle. But I'm hoping that somebody starts to get out, a hold of this, and they start to galvanize what it could look like in gaming. I want to give shout outs to, I can't remember the colleges. It might have been MIT, but I was ranting on the podcast when I was doing TL Talks about how Breath of the Wild was doing mechanics, but no school was teaching it. And recently I went to look on an update because I saw somebody make a Gundam in Breath of the Wild and out of engineering mechanic. And I was like, well, what's going on with this? A school is teaching this right now. They are teaching mechanical engineering at a college, and they are having you get the game, go in the game, and create mechanical apparatuses. And I was like, oh, we are getting somewhere. Hallelujah. So, maybe in time, maybe that's the gear, but I'm hoping that's the direction that we're headed in. Where we're at right now, I think everybody's just trying to get money because there is a huge money sell in college games right now. And I'm just hoping it doesn't take over. So y'all, if y'all listening to me, don't let that money dictate you. Think about that. How many people you can help. Some learning in there.